What's up, guys? This is Daniel with the Midnight Movie Trash Podcast, and I'm here with our host, Sparta Primes. How you doing today, man?
Hey man, it's Sparta Prime. I'm happy. I usually cover WWE content, but I'm good. Excited to talk horror, talk about Natalia Grace, and to work with you again. So, I'm glad we can build and grow together, man.
Most definitely, man. Thank you for taking the time to host my inaugural episode of the
There you go.
podcast.
Hey
That's
man, let's get it.
coming
Let's
back.
build. Let's build. Let's work. You know, you don't win by not making content. So as long as you make content, you're always winning, right?
Exactly. Got to keep moving.
No doubt.
All right, so
All right. Well, as host, we were talking this week about Natalia Grace. It seems to be, I'm a WWE fan. Alexa Bliss tweeted on her Twitter about it, and I got interested. And then when I looked into it, there's a documentary called Natalia Grace, and I actually caught this story a few years ago. And like I don't know if it's like an article or like one of those little shorts where they just talk about things that are like shocking. And I caught it, and I thought if you want to work on a show about it, but Natalia Grace, what would you like to talk about, or do you like me to lay it out for you and explain it for our viewers?
uh, just go ahead and give the rough synopsis because this is a crazy one.
Okay. Well, Natalia Grace, she is initially adopted as a 6-year-old child to the Barnett family, Michael and Christine Barnett. So they adopt this 6-year-old girl, and she has some psycho tendencies, what we're going to talk more about. But when they start looking into it, they find out that she's like 22 years old. And they didn't adopt a child. They actually adopt a full grown woman who has a lot of mental health problems. And that's saying it lightly if you ever watched the show. So, we're going to talk about it today. And so after watching the first two episodes, again, we're going to cover just the first two episodes. So if you haven't watched the first two episodes, this is your spoiler warning. This is your chance to run in for safety. We're going to go ahead and get into episode 1 and 2. So, Midnight Movie Trash, D Block Daniel the Man. What do you think about Natalia Grace, The Curious Case, episode 1 and 2?
Man, when you told me about it, it piqued my interest, and the first thing that came to mind was the film The Orphan,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically almost the same thing. And on the first episode, they mentioned The Orphan in the first episode, which was basically a young, I believe it was a Russian or Ukrainian child, same thing,
Yeah.
adopted and had the same tendencies, was a actual adult. And, you know, this case, is it's nuts. That's all I can
Wait,
say.
wait, wait. You're telling me you're the horror guru here. So you're saying that The Orphan was based off this real life story?
I believe so because
Wow.
it's almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they did touch on it, and it's one of those films that for me, if you watch it, I can sit and watch it anytime. It's that good because the case is so messed up, and this is exactly like Natalia's case. You know, in the first episode when they're going through the adoption process, and one of the things that first stuck out to me was the moment when the mom starts to find the bloody socks outside of the child's window, and right then and there I was like, okay, you know she's not a 6-year-old child.
So are we talking Orphan the movie or the docu series right
the
now?
doc the docu series,
Oh, okay.
yeah, the docu series. It it right off the bat, biologic, bio what do you call it, biology, you know dictates that you know that's not a child. And it spiraled fast for me, hearing the family, the Barnetts, talk. It was something that wasn't subtle. It was just they got the kid and she started showing her colors right off the bat. I mean, did you get that same vibe when you watched the first episode?
Well, I'm going to backtrack a bit because you were talking about the adoption, and then when the Barnetts, Caitlin and not Caitlin, yeah, Michael and Christine. Sorry, I was talking about the actress. Um, Michael and Christine I felt like that when they said that somebody said, "Hey, man, you can adopt this child." And when they met her and they were like, you can do it and you have so much time to do it, I felt like that was like a huge red flag that the Barnetts overlooked. Like, what if you want to adopt a child, why the rush, right? And if somebody was lined up to get the child, why were or you know, it just felt like they were rushed into a bad deal. And now, like knowing more of it, it makes sense. But like after they adopt her, you're right. They talk about, you know, when the mother gives her a bath and she has hair in her lower region she's not supposed to, and then the socks, it did unravel fast, you know, and that should have been their first red flag, not first, but second or third red flag,
Yeah.
you know. But I felt like they were just in love with her as a parent. Like they, and you know, even in docu series, you talk about anybody who saw her as to adopt her. What I've noticed that she has charisma. You know, little Natalia Grace, she has charisma that when people meet her, this is child was meant for me. So you know, I know that that was a powerful thing, and that's something that Natalia Grace in series. She has great charisma or great ability, the great ability to manipulate people. And like you said, the flags slowly unfolded. And as I was watching it, it felt like a low key horror film. You know, like
Yeah.
that was that's my thought on it at least.
Yeah. And you know, you're right about the adoption, you know, being a red flag. Um, they mentioned that something happened in the world that stopped them from um being able to adopt. So it was kind of like the perfect storm for them when they got the phone call that, you know, they had Natalia, and, you know, they jumped on it. But, you know, they were already a family with three sons. And, you know, to me, it was like, did you just specifically want a girl, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what was the, you know, mindset behind adopting her?
Right.
And, you know, as the show goes on and the red flags start popping up, you know, it's well, one thing I got to say is the Barnetts themselves are kind of sketchy. I felt, you know, it was yeah, they were going through this stuff, but if you notice the father, him talking from 2019 to 2022, his stories are completely different.
But not just that. I'm glad you put that. When I saw him talk, I got a weird vibe from, and when they even when they introduced him on the series, you know, like this the real people behind the story. I got a weird vibe from him and his wife. Like, you know, it just something, even though everything was shown like they were the victim, they were, you know, like they were just trying to, I have three kids, I always wanted a daughter, you know, they tried, it's like they were trying to sell too hard how good of people, like that they're good people. I got
Yeah,
that instant vibe, like, you know, good people don't sell that hard. You just know, and they're confident in themselves, you know?
yeah, no doubt. Like they were really overselling, like car salesman mode.
Mm-hmm.
Or they were really trying to paint the perfect picture. And, you know, there's always two sides to the story.
Right.
And, you know, the dad, he gave me a little bit of vibe that he was a little mentally unstable.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it shows in some of the, like on the trailer I saw for it. There's an outburst that he has during the filming, and I was like, why would you go that route? It's
Oh,
like,
that's one where he's like hitting the ground, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it goes some part where they make him look unstable in the promo, like the commercial, because it's like one minute he's talking all sensibly, next minute he's screaming, and then the mom, she just seemed real secretive, man. Like I get like a
hmm,
sneaky vibe from her. Like when I first saw them introduce themselves and tell her story, I'm just like, man, this woman just seems like she's hiding something, or she's, I don't
yeah,
know, just felt just, you know, just instinct wise, I didn't get a good vibe off either one of them, even though in episode one they're the victims, you know, oh well with me, you know, but
yeah,
yeah. And then what did you think about when once they adopted her and they started talking more about her Natalia Grace's actions, you know, after they started getting those red flags, what do you think about Natalia Grace's actions that kind of put the family into like, oh crap, or oh no, this I'm in danger, you know?
yeah. You know, I mean, the most messed up part about it is she would openly admit that she would do these things. Like there's a scene where they talk about her taking the items like a little Hot Wheel from one of the brothers and throwing it in the street into oncoming traffic, and that right there for me would be like, wait, why would she try to hurt her new brother?
Right.
And then, as it progresses, the whole her talking about poisoning the mom, it's like, how long do you have to take before you realize or that you're in danger, you know,
Yeah.
as a person that's always aware of my surroundings, something like that. I couldn't be in the same house with that kid.
Now, did she open up with the knife first, or did she start with the poisoning the drink first? Which one happened first? I'm trying to remember.
I know she talked about stabbing.
Like they found knives
Yeah,
initially, right? And
yeah,
then they asked her, like, "Hey, what were you gonna do with this knife?" And she's like, "I was going to kill you."
yeah, like
Like
so
when,
nonchalant. Just
yeah. Now, in the picture, when this, as they're explaining the story, in their mind, it's a 6-year-old with a knife in her room saying, "Why do you want this?" And a 6-year-old little girl is saying, "Hey, I plan to kill you."
yeah, man. It was the entire time that I'm sitting here watching it, it caught me right off the bat. The story, you know, I got the vibes from all three of them right off the bat. Like something's off on all three of them, and you know the boys, you know, are a victim in a way because they were the ones that were being threatened also, and it's how do you sleep at night with somebody, and they addressed that they would have to lock her in her own room and basically take her to and fro the kitchen to the bathroom like an inmate.
You know what? I think the what kicked that off was that there's a noise in the middle of the night, and the father woke up, and Mike Barnett walks to the room and sees her standing in front of the door. As now, that would be scary. It's like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. You go to your kid's door, and you see your kid standing and with a knife. I believe it was with a knife, and
Yeah,
saying like, "What were you doing?" "I was getting ready to kill you once you fall asleep." Like I instantly thought of Pet Cemetery on that scene with the little boy.
yep, yep.
Yeah, and
Gage.
he said that he had to, I think, I don't know if I quote me if I'm wrong, but I think he said he had to sit in the hallway and watch her the whole night. And that gave me a bad flashback to my Iraq days, man. When I was deployed, we had this thing called a Patriot Clinic. So somebody that's like really displayed like how you say it, like kind of like suicidal or harm to others, I was asked to watch certain soldiers for 24 hours until they got better. And I handled it well, but I'm just thinking like a regular person who's not trained, who doesn't have the background with it. And this is where I actually started to feel bad from where like I kind of lost the weird vibe for a second, like, yo, these poor people, dude. Like, it's I just I've done it before having to watch people like that. Even my time as a detention officer watching kids who would want to harm themselves. It's it's a feeling where you can't relax. And when I saw that's why I started to sympathize with them because if you relax, two things could happen. They could hurt themselves or they could hurt somebody in the house. And if you fall asleep and you let that happen, nobody would forgive themselves. You couldn't. So that's in a way, that's what keeps you awake, but also keeps you on edge. And to do that over a prolonged time, man, having to lock your child in, having to walk to the bathroom, that's stressful, man. And that can you imagine having one of the three sons having to endure that. Like, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, man. They focus on one of the sons who was a genius, and the other two are, they're
On
always,
TED Talk, by the way.
yeah, it's all good, man. But and let me add to what you just said, because it's one thing when you're dealing with an adult, but do you think it added a different layer when it's a child?
Yeah, you do. As a child, it's like an adult, you're more guarded because adults, it's a different kind of power.
Hmm.
As a child, you dealing with a child that wants to hurt themselves, it's more like you're not worried as much about having to protect yourself because an adult can attack you where you have to fend for yourself. But a child, especially a little child, you're more concerned about them being sneaky or waiting for, kids are intelligent. I
Mm-hmm.
worked as a JDO officer, and detention officer, and I've had to be in those moments. And kids are very intelligent. They know when your guard's gonna drop. They know if somebody walks by at your friend, you're gonna talk to them. They're gonna be like, "Hey, I got a minute or two here to work with. What can I do?" So, I think as a child, your heart's more in. Not like you care about life any less, but that parental instinct is like, okay, I can't let this child hurt himself. And the other thing is like this kid's watching me to see what I'm going to do. So I can, if I'm complacent, I can create a window for this kid to either hurt themselves, more or less themselves than you. If a kid attacks you, you're going to feel comfortable, but you just don't want a kid to be hurt and it's your fault because you were complacent, and it's just
Yeah.
a different approach.
Yeah. And you know, the brothers, they hide the faces of the two younger brothers, and we
Mhm.
only get to see and hear from the eldest. You know, can you and he even states in one of the episodes that certain things, well, the poisoning of the mom basically left him with a lifelong fear of drinks that aren't prepared in front of him, or he could see where they came from.
You know what?
And
I think they stopped the interview because it becomes too much for him. Is that
yeah,
is that right?
yeah, he has to take a moment because, you know, as a kid, I mean, that became a trigger for him, and rightfully so, because I mean, he was he was what, about 8, 9, 10ish, around there. He was like the eldest. You
Mhm.
know, that's too young for any kid to be going through, a sibling that wants to murder you in your sleep.
And see, that's where I really started to feel sorrow, sympathy towards them. Like when he says, can we stop? That kid is super genuine, super believable,
Hmm.
right? And it's like, his mom tried to drink a cup of coffee. She puts soap in the coffee. So as you said, like an 8, 7-year-old child seeing that, you're going to be scared to drink. If they're willing to poison the parent, who are the
Oh,
keepers, the king and queens of the house, what would they do to me? So I can imagine being 8 and having to worry about, and I'm sure they're aware of the knife now that, and he said, I endured a lot of trauma and I had PTSD from it. And I believe the kid. I
yeah.
really believed him. Now he's a young man, but, just thinking as a child would look at it, like, that's gotta be horrifying. Gotta be.
And he has, he's a genius, and he gave me a slight resemblance to Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory.
That's
And
awesome. I'm a
and
big fan of that
and
show.
Sheldon couldn't lie and couldn't, deviate from the truth. So
Yeah.
I got that same vibe from this kid. So when he's talking, I'm getting the vibe that he's recanting, not recanting, but telling the story
Hmm.
as it happened. And there's
Yeah.
no buffer, there's no like mom or dad in the ear making up a story. No, that's him really telling what truly transpired.
Mhm.
And the one thing that we haven't really touched on is Natalia is a basically a special needs child,
Mhm.
with a rare form of dwarfism. So that also added to her, like, how could she do that? You know, and there's a scene further on in the series where they're like, how is she going to do that if she's a child
Right.
and with a disability on top of that? But
Mhm.
that's also where we come back into the she's older than she really is. And you know that whole scenario was something wildly insane. And but that one also brings up the dad telling two different stories at two different times.
Mhm.
So it's a give and take. You start to feel for the Barnetts, and then all of a sudden they say something, and then you're like, wait, you're contradicting yourself. The whole story's different. And then, Natalia does certain things and you're like, well, maybe she is a kid, or so it's a back and forth, or at least it was for me. I don't know if you got that vibe also.
Well, because I heard the story in the past, like I read up on it, so I wasn't really shocked. I knew she was older because of that, but I also like just thinking like picturing, imagine watching the show, imagining that in the parents' minds that this is a child. But the fact that see, this is what I didn't understand. This what doesn't make sense to me, right? if she's a 6 year old child and she's abandoned, why would she want to kill the people that are taking care of her? That's what didn't make sense to me because I'm like, wait a second, this kid's been abandoned, right? So this kid clearly has abandonment issues. Why most scenarios, if you have a good family, you don't want to kill them. I mean, you should want to kill anybody anyways,
Yeah.
but with the I believe they said she was a sociopath and she has great manipulator, and it just didn't make sense to me that you know they're a rich family, they're a wealthy family, they're living very well, and in the videos they look like they're trying to take care of her, they're taking her out to eat, she's part of the family, they're buying her clothes. Why I still don't get why a random adopted child, even if she is 22, why would she say these things? That was the thing I didn't understand. Most people
Yeah.
would be happy to be in a family. And it makes you wonder, like, what either she's crazy or what's been happening in that house that we don't know about that would make their child want to kill them. And specifically, I don't think she said the kids, did she? I think she's targeted the parents.
She targeted the parents, but she would
Yeah.
also like they brought up that the incident where she threw the car in the street,
Mhm.
and I believe there was a drawing that she did also that kind of depicted that she wanted to kill everybody in the house.
Yeah, that was very telling, man.
You know, it's I mean it's sad to see, a person like that,
Mhm.
but you're right, what did she endure that could have triggered that, or did she just come from the Ukraine like that?
Right.
And I stopped myself like midway through the third episode because I didn't realize it was going into the third episode.
Yeah.
So they're going to touch on that further down,
Okay.
that mindset of why. And it's it's it was a sad and upsetting watch in a way, but it was also very intriguing. Like, what is the deal? It's what really locked me in. Is what is the truth? And I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna get the truth.
I tell you right, when that scene where she's standing in the room and he gets up for the commotion and she said, I wanted to kill you, wait for you to fall asleep and all that good stuff. That was when I started to lean on the Barnett side,
Mm-hmm.
sympathizing with them and thinking this child is crazy. So I mean, I haven't seen nothing that really makes me sympathetic to the child or Natalia Grace. We don't know how old she is yet. But the actions and all that stuff, I just feel like the Barnetts also had me under concerns. Like, if those things were happening, right? Like, why didn't they reach out to the adoptive people that adopted her, or like,
Well, they did.
and what did they tell them?
They were told that it was a closed adoption and that the family wanted to have no contact or give no information.
That's crazy. Well, see,
And
them that family has money though.
yeah, yeah, and you know, moving to the scene at the what was it, the cattle dairy farm where they get their first interaction with, I believe it's their first interaction with law enforcement, where it's the one of the youngest son's birthday and he loved cows, so they decided to take him to the dairy farm to milk a cow,
Right.
which
Wasn't that the? What about when did the one where the police officer came and sided with them?
I believe that was second episode
Was
after
that
this.
before or after? So that was after this.
Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
the dairy farm leads up into her first her going into, I guess, the state hospital for
Mhm,
a short stay.
mhm.
And the
Well, they got rid of her.
yeah, the dairy farm incident,
Yeah.
uh you know has an electric fence and they had to sign a waiver. And the way the father described it is when she learned about what the fence did, she lit up. That right there freaked me out because most kids aren't going to really understand,
Mhm.
what they can do with that fence. They'll just realize, like, hey, I shouldn't touch it. It's going to shock me. But her wheels were turning in her mind that she was going to use that to her advantage. At least
Mhm.
that's the way the dad portrayed it.
But see, that is where I started feeling like he was overselling. When that happened, I was like, that's when I started saying, when I say, hey, man, this guy's selling a little too hard. I'm like, and the other thing was this, as a parent, right? If you're, your kid's got problems and you see like like you said, the wheels turning, why would they even bring her out there? Right?
Yeah.
That whole scene, there were so many gaps in that story. I don't know. So basically, the rundown is they tell him it's electrified. She lights up. She's excited. The dad's selling that she looks like she has plans for the electric fence that it could kill somebody. And you want to go ahead and explain the story? Keep going.
Yeah, so the daughter, she's walking, Natalia's walking, and all of a sudden she sits on the ground and says, "I can't walk." And so the mother stays back with her and tells
It's a
the
trap. Star Wars.
yeah, basically,
Yeah.
telling them to continue forward, and that she's not going to let her ruin the birthday. So, he says that they go down further and start hearing screaming, and he looks back, and Natalia's pulling the mom towards the electric fence, and there's an altercation. And then he goes into saying that I guess when they were coming back, there was police sirens and police was there.
But see, this is also one part where I also start to say like dad's story's fishy, right? So remember, she just like you said, she pretends she's hurt, and then the mom I guess says, I'll stay with him. I'm not gonna let her ruin the boy's
Hmm.
birthday. Just go with. I think there's a. So they leave, and as they leave, they hear a loud commotion. He says he runs like 100 feet or
Yeah,
200
that's right.
feet, comes back and sees them wrestling, and she goes, "Just go. I got this." And I'm like,
Right.
no way any man that knows his kids got some issues is gonna leave. That didn't make sense to me. Like, okay, we're just gonna go ahead, even though we see a problem and y'all wrestling with each other. That is where I was like, hold up. Okay, between the oversell and between that right there, I knew something was up with the father right there. I'm like, most most fathers would have came back and helped no matter what. I'm not gonna leave them
Hmm.
wrestling on the ground. Because think about it. They're wrestling on the ground by the fence, and she's like, don't worry, I got this. He's like, okay, honey, good luck. And they take off over the alleged hill. It sounds like such a stereotype story. Over the hill, we
Yep.
so yeah, and then go ahead, my bad. But that was where I was just like put it together, like this dad's not right.
Yep. And so when they come back, they're there with the police, and see, here's where the dad tells one version of the story in
Mhm.
2019, and then in later on in the I believe the second episode, he talks about it again, and he tells a completely different story in 2022. So it's like, okay, what really did happen? But that led basically to her being put in a state hospital,
Yeah,
and they were like relieved that they had gotten rid of her. But while Natalia's in the state hospital, she started to show another side of herself, the more adult side, as she was very sexual towards the male patients, the orderlies, anybody. And it got to a point where they had to kick her out because of that. And so now all of a sudden the family has to deal back with her.
yeah.
And
But that hospital scene, that's where like I started to go. Remember, I said sometimes I was with the parents,
mhm,
sometimes I was with Natalia, thinking like this is fishy. It was what was crazy that they actually had to hide the identities of the people that worked at the hospital and dealt with her.
yeah,
And the fact that like those people, the same things were being said. She's a manipulator. She's a liar. She knows how to turn on a charm. And they even said like she knows when to act like a child. And then there's times where she would act like an adult talking about sexual, trying to make sexual conversation, sexual talk, sex talk,
yeah,
being provocative and flirting and even offering herself. So like that was one of those things where it's like, okay, the Barnetts may not be the liars or deceitful ones. It's if a whole facility and you got
yeah,
2, 3 different people that have not met the Barnetts, that don't work with the Barnetts, that aren't friends with the Barnetts, saying the same thing, more than likely, she's these things, right?
yeah.
And the fact that the state hospital wanted to get rid of her. So I'm like, hold up. If the state hospital is saying she's a psychopath, she's a sociopath, she's gonna hurt somebody, here, take her home.
Basically, tag, you're
you
it.
know?
Yeah, man. I mean, And you know, they even stated that she was trying to proposition some of the men
Yeah.
money. It was like,
Oh, I didn't catch money. Damn money.
yeah, they said that she was trying to,
That's terrible.
you know, I'm like, so what 6-year-old kid would know about that? You
You
know,
know what I
so
thought of in that scene? That Dracula.
yeah,
Yeah. And it kind of made sense, right? Like they look young, but they have adult urges,
yeah,
just like the Dracula's movie, you know?
yeah, just like what is it, Interview with a Vampire with
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
See, that's why you're the horror guru here.
yeah, no doubt. Okay, man, we're down to about 4 minutes.
Mhm.
So I guess final thoughts so far in the episodes.
Oh, you want me to lay it down?
Go ahead and give me your thoughts.
So I'm at the point now where I think nobody's telling the truth in this story. Like Natalia Grace is who is every bit as bad as her parents, and I did that based on the fact that other people had the same story. Um, the father, at least, I don't think he's telling the truth. That story with the whole fence and all that, I didn't buy that. You know, I'm trying to kill them. I'm trying to kill them. There would have to be a police report with those words, right? Like that should help them, if anything, that they have a police officer that's seeing them kid them right. Well, I want to kill him. I want to kill him. You know, that document alone should help them, right? With any
Yeah,
legal issues. And I noticed the mom is over her stuff. The mom is more aggressive, more mean. The mom's done with her. You could tell by her mom's actions and her verbiage, she hates her. And you could tell by the way she's treating her. Like, no, you're not going to ruin this today. And it reminds me of like a disgruntled teacher who's over a kid. Like working in a field with kids, you can tell when somebody's done with a kid. And it really reminded me that where we say, hey, man, you got to, you know, you'll pull a teacher or a deal, say, hey, man, don't deal with this kid if you can't talk to this kid right. And the mom is at that point where she's over it. She's no longer seeing her as a kid or as a person. And I didn't buy the police story about her arresting her, throwing to the fence. It just, and then the last thing, the fact that the hospital wants to get rid of her, that I believed. And I'm just like, as a parent, what do you do? What do you do when the professionals can't help you?
yeah,
So I just feel like they're all lying. I don't feel like anybody's telling the truth in this story. Only people I feel sorry for are the nurses that worked with the kid.
yeah.
And I just think that more is going to come out and we're going to reveal that there's going to be some dark secrets of the parents. I feel, you know, only actually, you know what? I'm wrong. Only kid that may not be lying is the kid.
Yeah.
And I just think that next we're going to see more about the parents and their flaws. And let's see who goes through with the legal issues. Go ahead, bro. You have the floor. I got a little long with it.
No, you're good, man. And basically, I co-signed everything you said. I feel the exact same way. Both parties are hiding something. Both
Mhm.
parties are lying. And the one thing I want to touch on what you said about the disgruntled mother with the child, that could also be the mother bear coming out to protect her
That's
biological
true.
three children also.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's going to be a lot more coming. And quickly before we go, uh, where can they find you on social media?
Oh, you can find me at Sparta Prime on Twitter or at Sparta Prime's the actual YouTube channel website. I do most of my work on Sparta Prime at Sparta Prime, or you can catch me on YouTube at Sparta Primes. We make WWE shorts, WWE content. We're always looking for more people to talk wrestling with. And if you have specifically, we're focused on WWE right now. We're gonna eventually branch out to more. But if you want to talk WWE, you know, hey, come down, join us in our WWE universe. And thank you for the plug and thank you for your time, Midnight Movie Trash.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for the help. Thank you for your time. Also, you can find me at Midnight Movie Trash, basically on everything, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. And with that being said, till next time,
That's
see ya.
right. All class and midnight movie trash. Let's go.